Speculation.
Trade talks.
Juicy rumors.
And happy Reckless Speculation Thursday to all who celebrate. It's a day where we get to, under the safe umbrella of no judgment, speculate on things that may or may not happen with our Minnesota sports team. It's always funny when things come out of this Thursday segment, or somebody will pontificate about something. Maybe Judd has a trade idea and people are like, classic SKOR North clickbait. We're just having fun. We're just speculating.
Soft as usual.
So we bring our friend in from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department, Darren Doogie Wolfson, and the Scoop Podcast. We'll get into some Viking stuff, but last night, probably one of the most impressive Wolves performances of the season so far. They're exactly 500 after 50 games. They're clinging to the 9 seed, but they're a game and a half out of the 4 seed. Everything is scrunched together. So what do you make of the current Wolves? And also, what are you hearing about potential moves as the trade deadline looms on the horizon, dudes?
Well, hello. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday, gentlemen. Let me start with the former, then I will get to the latter. By the way, Phil, yes, last night was impressive. When you win in New Orleans, it's nice. Right now, no Zion. Brandon Ingram was gone for, nearly 30 games. So, yeah, he was back, but it's going to take him multiple games to get his legs back underneath him. Brandon Ingram was horrible last night, but hey, the Wolves are down guys as well, right? Like, we know how important Taurean Prince is. Yeah. Look at what the Wolves' record is with Prince in the lineup compared to out of the lineup, plus Karl-Anthony Towns, Jordan McLaughlin. I did note on Tuesday with Judd, Phil, that Jordan is about 2 weeks out. So I can't give you a timeline on him. I can't give you a timeline on Karl-Anthony Towns, who on his Twitch late last week volunteered that it is a grade 3 calf strain. That is the most severe. That is an 8 to 12 week recovery. Sometimes you need to undergo surgery. No surgery in this case. I can tell you he's been doing some work on the court, some boxing work off the court. I think he'll be back at some point. I don't think it's a season-ending injury, but he is still weeks out. But with McLaughlin, he's close. He is now ramping up activity on the court. They will absolutely welcome back Jordan McLaughlin. On Taurean Prince, short-term injury, should be back in the next game or two. That is not any sort of long-term situation. But yeah, they played well in that third quarter last night. I still think the Memphis win here, the Cleveland win here on a back-to-back, there have been better wins. Even the Denver win here, even though Denver played the night before, there have been better wins. But yeah, that was a nice win. But Phil, that to me is who they are, right? What we've seen the last couple games, right? You lose in Houston, you win in New Orleans. I think at the end of the year, end of the regular season at least, we will look at it and say, okay, 41-41, that makes sense. Or 42-40, or 40-42. Maybe there will be a little bit more fluctuation, but I think 43 wins max. I think 38 wins is the floor, somewhere in that ballpark, right? But if they finish 41-41, I will not be surprised. Now, this year, 41 wins may actually get you as high as the 6. I would think the play-in is more likely at 41, but the Western Conference is so darn weird. But I loved how they played in the third quarter last night. Anthony Edwards is taking that step that we thought he would take. It now goes back, 6-8 weeks, right? That massive leap that a lot of guys like John Moran of Memphis did last year 2 to year 3. Year 3 here for Ant. That massive leap. Jaden McDaniels, that big 3 late last night. I want him shooting the ball more. Jaden McDaniels is a legit offensive player. They don't run plays for him. I want him shooting more than 7 times like he did last night. But Jaden is playing really well. D'Angelo Russell is shooting the ball better than he ever has before. So D'Angelo Russell deserves credit for that. On the trade deadline, February 9th, the Wolves continue to receive a bunch of phone calls. Naz Reid, even Taurean Prince, some other guys. I know Russell's name has been bandied about. Phil, I've been on record now going back about 3 weeks.
You see this shaking out? Because, as difficult and as up and down as the season has been, there has now been a significant period of time in which Ant has emerged into the role that we all sort of saw Ant at. So when Cat comes back, when you've got your roster back, how is this going to look then? And like, how much is there going to be I would guess, an observatory period too, to decide what this team should look like on opening day next season, based on the fact that I think we all agree with one thing. We all like where Ant is at. Like, this feels like the right formula. You just need to put the pieces of the puzzle back in. How's that going to shake out in your opinion?
Well, I mean, when looking ahead to next October, opening night of the 23-24 season, like, let's see how the rest of this year plays out. I mean, clearly Ant needs to be the alpha, but how will Cat adjust? Yeah, I mean, Cat will be back. Like, I'm telling you, like, I've never once heard this is a season-ending type injury, but I did think he'd be back this calendar month. That is not going to happen. But February seems realistic, right? I mean, we've got 28 days to play with. I would hope by the end of February, but maybe it's March. But he will be back. I think that's a good problem. Like, to me, from a spacing standpoint, the way Cat can space the floor, open up the lane that much more for Ant. Like, hopefully Cat is not jacking up 25 shots a game, something crazy, so he's going to have to defer that way. But we even saw it before the injury. Like, his assist numbers have gone up, right? I mean, he's been moving the ball, so I'm not overly worried. Like, to me, a 7-footer with that skill set, come on board, right? Like, Chris Finch should happily take that situation. The defense is the question, right? I mean, how does he defend some of these fours, right? As long as him and Gobert, start games, finish games, play somewhere in the middle, we're not talking 38 minutes together, but whatever the number is, can Cat, guard some of these power forwards? That to me remains the question, but they will happily welcome him back. But, in terms of how this all fits, we know this much. Ant will, when he's eligible, he'll sign the max extension. There's nothing to worry about in that regard. Like, no player in his position has turned down max money, so he will sign a max extension. So Ant has to be the alpha. Like, he is emerging into the alpha. He needs to continue to be the alpha. So I guess I get your inquiry about how will Cat adjust to that, but like, to me, that's a fine problem to have. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of worry with that. I just worry about Cat's defense.
Kyle and I talked about this on Flagrant Howls a few days ago. The hardest part about this trade deadline, so you've got D'Lo, impending free agent, Naz Reid, impending free agent. Jalen Noel is as well, but I don't think he's like a top priority to figure out if he goes and gets paid somewhere, whatever. On Naz and D'Lo, you're trying to make decisions. You can't keep everyone. If you're going to keep Gobert and Towns, you can't keep D'Lo on an extension. Naz is going to get paid to some extent. Like you mentioned, the Ant, Jaden McDaniels contracts, like, you have to say goodbye to some of these guys. And the only time to do it and get value, unless there's a sign-in trade, which that's kind of crossing your fingers and hoping that if you carry D'Lo into the offseason, he either walks and you don't get the full $30 million in cap space back, or you could maybe like try to get him to do a sign and trade if he picks a team that, needs help facilitating. But I guess my question is, how do you make these decisions now? Like, if you're going to trade Cat in the offseason, you'd probably want to keep Naz Reid around, but you might have to trade Naz Reid to get something for him and make a decision before you even really know, because Cat's been out for 2 months. I guess I'm saying it's very complicated here, Doogie.
It is, but it's asset acquisition. Like, independent of whether you're keeping Cat or not, like, Naz Reid is a functioning big man, right? I mean, he can be a starter. He can be a reserve. Like, the Wolves have tried for a bit to extend him, Phil. Those talks will continue up until the trade deadline. So that is the question. Like, if the Wolves can't reach an agreement with Naz, and as far as I know, like, they haven't been close at any point, right? If they were close, it would be done. And if you're Naz, there is incentive to hit the open market. Nearly half the league in July will have cap space. He can hit the jackpot in July. So I'm not quite sure, if you're Naz, why you would want to sign an extension
you
right
don't.
now. But based on the rules, like, the Wolves could extend Naz Reid today, right? Like, the rules allow that. They could extend D'Angelo Russell today. Those negotiations are taking place. Those talks, at least, are taking place. But there's no sense in my mind that Naz agrees to an extension pre-February 9th, or even Jalen Noel. There has been dialogue on Jalen Noel as well. Not really anything hopping on the Russell front. But, like, to me, if you can find a happy medium, like, you sign Naz and just figure out everything else later, right? But you're right. At this point, it's trending toward, okay, Naz, unrestricted free agent in July, would it make more sense to trade him right now? Hoops Hype has said that the Nets have some interest. There was a report about the Nuggets having interest. Now, I will tell you on that one, I checked with 2 people in Denver. Crickets, right? Like, they're not aware of Calvin Booth having legit Naz Reid interest, but maybe eventually. The Clippers are looking for a backup big. They don't really have a backup 5, right? Moses Brown, not much there for me. Now, he's been okay, but Naz would be a clear upgrade. I will tell you that this regime, Tim Connolly and company, after John Wall was on the open market for a little bit when the Wolves were trying to navigate, okay, do we move D'Lo? This is going back to the summer. Is there a pathway for us to bring back Tyus Jones? But another point guard they kicked the tires on, I am told, is John Wall, right? So would you have any interest in adding John Wall in some sort of Naz Reid trade? But to me, no. I wouldn't do that.
I
don't have interest in that.
Hoops Hype had Terrence Mann as a name too, like a Naz Reid for.
Okay, sign me up on the Terrence Mann front. But see, I checked on that one, Phil, and I was told, no, not for Naz Reid. Now, if it turns into a 2-for-2 or some draft pick compensation, okay, maybe. But I don't think the Clippers have a whole lot of interest in Mann being a centerpiece for Naz Reid being the return.
Yeah, well, that's fair.
Hey, Dukes, because the conference is so tight and the playoff race is going to be so tight, how much is that going to change things at the deadline as well? Because I would imagine that the sellers, there will be some, but there's probably going to be a lot of teams that still think that they're involved because of the top 10 and because, the 10th team is not that far behind like the 6th team. So how much does this change the dynamic of the potential deadline moves based on that fact that there's going to be a lot of teams probably that are going to be reluctant to sell because they still have a chance?
Yeah, reluctant, but it is a seller's market because there are a number of buyers. So if you're the Spurs, like Jakob Poeltl, you have to move him. Why wouldn't you move him? Now, okay, if you can sign him to an extension, maybe, but if I'm San Antonio, that's not a real hard decision. Josh Richardson, if I'm San Antonio, that's an easy move. Why wouldn't I move him? Now, a team like Toronto, Gary Trent Jr., right, unrestricted free agent. What do you do? Toronto, now, did they win last night? They were up big against Sacramento. I didn't see the final score late last night. Toronto is Jekyll and Hyde, though. They are really good. They lost that game here when they should have won it earlier this month. Toronto is so weird. Nick Nurse is a really good coach. They have good players, but to me, what do they do with Van Vliet? What do they do with Gary Trent Jr.? But there are a ton of buyers. That's what the play-in has accomplished, right, Jed? That a lot of these teams feel like, hey, we're not all that far off. Even a team like Golden State, nice win last night. Jordan Poole, a layup at the buzzer to beat Memphis, who's here tomorrow night. Golden State right now might be in the 7 or the 8 spot. I don't think they're as high as 6. But if you're the Warriors, you're just about, hey, let's find a way to get healthy. Who cares if we're the 7 or the 8? If we match up against Memphis in the first round or Denver, are we going to curl up in the fetal position? If you're the defending champ Warriors and you need to play games 1 and 2 in Memphis or Denver, is that big of a deal? Right? So, there are teams like that, or the Clippers are probably in that boat. Then there's teams like the Knicks, trying to be active. Where do they fit in? Pecking order in the Eastern Conference. Indiana, we thought they would be a seller. Now they haven't played great ball the last month, but Indiana is capable. It'll help when they get Tyrese Halliburton back. But there's a bunch of teams kind of, stuck in the middle there, Jed. I think that screams that it's going to be a very busy final 48 to 72 hours. Let's fast forward to February 7th, February 8th, that there's going to be a ton of, well, for sure, dialogue. I'm not sure about a ton of action, but enough action. Now, we had Hachimura go from Washington to the Lakers this week. So there's, trade here, trade there. But I just think it's going to be a really, really active final 48 to 72 hours. Now, on the Wolves front, I just wonder if you stay status quo. What move is really out there? Taurean Prince helps them too much on the court. I'm not trading Taurean Prince. You can trade Taurean Prince
he's under contract
to bring in somebody else,
right?
But why would you move Taurean Prince?
I think you'd look to move D'Lo if you wanted to get some value for him. That's
well, and that goes to kicking the can down the road, right? Because the cap is going up, but when you think about the potential luxury tax ramifications, 3 years, 4 years out with the Ant Max extension, Gobert still on the hook, the Cat Max extension will have kicked in by then, right? So the idea would be, let's just kick the can down the road. We have that salary cap slot. Can we bring in somebody? It's not Kyle Lowry. The Wolves are not doing Russell for Lowry straight up, something I brought up 6 weeks ago, and then the national media picked up some steam on that. But that would be the idea, that you'd bring in somebody like a Mike Conley Jr., although I don't think Utah's doing that, but that is under contractual control for 1 more year. So you would kick the can down the road in that regard. That's why you would move Russell, because they still need a starting point guard for next year. So if you could bring in a starting point guard for next year that can also help you now, then yes. Like, I don't think Tim Connolly is saying I can't move D'Angelo Russell.
Well,
I'm just saying I don't know if I see something coming to fruition. That's why I foresee Russell here on February 10th.
Yeah, and the development too of Point Ant, he's been handling the ball a lot more often with comfort, and his game has flourished. To me, it's less important that you have a $30 million point guard that also, as he told Yahoo, considers himself an alpha. Hey, D'Lo, and D'Lo's been playing some of the best basketball of his career over the last 2 or 3 months, and so he deserves huge credit. But when he was asked a question by Yahoo about, hey, what's it been like sort of mentoring Ant and helping him develop, and his response, and again, we're just seeing it in article form, so maybe it was edited or clipped, but his response was, I'm an alpha too. It's like, okay, but I don't know that dynamic. I think if you're not sort of deferring to Anthony Edwards long term, there's probably not a place for you in that backcourt, and it feels like he wants to be the guy in a backcourt still at this stage in his career. But they're playing pretty well together too. It seems like they're feeding off each other better than they have in 3 years.
Yeah, Russell has adjusted.
Yes,
yeah.
It's a really interesting dynamic right now.
Russell deserves credit. Now, in Russell's defense, you think about his background. In high school, plays at one of those basketball factories, then goes to Ohio State. 1 and done. Number 2 overall pick in the draft. Signs the big contract with the Warriors. Like, he's been treated, going back to when he was 15, 16 years old, as an alpha, right? He's been treated as a guy that when you go number 2 in the draft, you are, treated like a superstar. We know he's not a superstar, but he's been treated like that. So I understand, when he delivers that line to Jake Fisher of Yahoo, and whatever it was, paraphrasing, I'm an alpha, whatever. Like, I do get it from his standpoint. I know he's not, but I understand where he's coming from.
He seems to get his role, though, I think.
He has. He deserves credit. Yes.
I guess my whole thing with Cat out is what I like is everyone is sort of now fit into a role, which is Ant in a starring role. So, like, it'd be different if D'Lo said, I'm an alpha too, and then was basically like, I got to have the ball, blah, blah, blah. And there are times he shoots too much. But that being said, I think that he's actually fit into a nice role here. And I don't think he's a problem when he's playing like this. This is why I go back to the Cat thing is the one piece of the puzzle I'm curious about is can Cat fit into a new role as far as what's expected of him? Because,
I think he can.
Everybody else
I don't know for sure. I think he will be able to. That he realizes, we do have a chance. If the Western Conference is pretty darn wide open, let's just find ourselves in that mix come early April. If we can get as high as 5, 6, maybe even 4, the preseason goal of being top 4, like, we can make some noise. Like, okay, Denver and Memphis deserve all sorts of credit, but, like, why can't we go mano-a-mano with them, right? Like, we had Memphis beat in many ways last April. They're now down, Melton and Kyle Anderson, and I get it. Jackson's maybe playing at a higher level. Ja Morant's playing at a higher level. Desmond Bane is still really, really good, as underrated a player as there is in the league. Tyus has been playing well. I get all that. Very well coached. Jenkins, really good coach in Memphis. But I'm just saying, if you're the Wolves, you could look at it and say, we're not gonna be scared of those guys. Like, let's just get in. So I think Cat, after all these years, year 8, right? Like, he wants to get to the second round. He wants to get to the third round, right? He wants to get to the finals. But, like, I think is willing to defer. Like, I'll be surprised if he doesn't. Like, I'm telling you, if we revisit this conversation come March 15th, presumably Cat's back for at least some sort of stretch by March 15th, about 6-7 weeks from now. I'll be surprised if we're saying, what the heck is Cat doing? I can't believe that he hasn't adjusted to Ant being the alpha. I'm just telling you that. I'll make that prediction. Write that down. I'll be surprised if Cat doesn't adjust.
Write this down.
We already had this one. It was called Cat's going to be the man prediction by me about 6 years ago.
It's
Still trying to quantify that one.
Exactly.
Well, you know what? When you sign a super max extension, Phil, you are the man, right?
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true.
To me, that's what it boils down to. So I would say, now, not like you went out on a limb, right? The former first overall pick. But yeah, when you get paid the money he's been paid, that will kick in here in the near future, not this year, but later on, you are the man.
We'll go through a final round of scoops here, starting with Vikings in just a moment. But, Judd, tell the audience about if they're looking for a group gathering specifically, and not just like 6 people. If you have 50 people or a reunion or something, Park Tavern in St. Louis Park, the official sports bar of the Sports Dad.
And a fantastic place to go for a group. I mean, right now, that's bowling. You are, if you're obviously watching us, that is just the bowling alleys, which are fantastic, which your group can enjoy. But we're talking about a place with 2 bars, with banquet rooms for group outings. We're talking about a place that's full of beer, full of fun, and full of opportunity. If you have a party to book, guess what? Park Tavern can take care of you, and they can basically make your life as easy as possible with one phone call, 952-929-6810, parktavern.net, in the St. Louis Park community for more than 42 years. A place that's open 365 days a year, a great place for a great time, parktavern.net, a personal favorite of not only Sports Dad, but Scoop Master Doogie as well.
Let's get it.
It's in the hood. Yep.
I know it is.
Yep. Drugie's been to a number of birthday parties there. Love it at Park Tavern.
All right, so the Vikings embark on a really interesting 6 weeks here into the league year, and then draft season as well. Half their defense is over the age of 30. They've got a bunch of bloated contracts. Adam Thielen's wife goes on Instagram a couple times and publicly vents about how her husband feels like he's not being utilized the right way. He never came out and negated it. So I guess help us wrap our arms around what may or may not happen here. Who's likely? We just did a full segment on, is there any trade value for some of these players? What do you think the roster shakeups will look like in the next 6 weeks, Doogie?
All right, well, let's start with Brian O'Neill. They can easily create cap space by restructuring that contract.
Yep.
I would
like a $10 million
100%
clearance.
Like, more than anything, I would say that move is coming, right? I mean, we can recklessly speculate on some other moves. Like that one, lock in, right? Like that's an easy move. You create all sorts of cap space by simply restructuring. Brian O'Neill is still here, coming back from the partially torn Achilles.
Yeah.
He's your starting right tackle in 2023. Nobody is debating that, but they can create cap space. So keep an eye absolutely on that situation. One other thing I would say I'm 98% sure on, they will look to extend TJ Hawkinson. So in the process, lower the 23 cap number, keep him here long term. The idea when they traded a second round pick to Detroit was we want him here for the next handful of years, not just for the rest of 22 and for 23. So look for them to extend TJ Hawkinson. After that, yeah, I mean, let's recklessly speculate. I mean, I've been saying for weeks that I can see them playing out the Kirk Cousins situation, but those close to Kirk, like I know 2 people who say, yeah, like we fully expect the Vikings to engage us on extension talks. Like, why wouldn't they? Based on the year he had? Wow. Yeah, like absolutely.
Wow, dude, that is a level of hubris that why not? You know, why wouldn't they? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think, they point to, the big boy throw in London against New Orleans late. Some of the big boy throws in the Washington game late. Yeah.
But
right?
here's what I would say. Like all that.
A lot of that
amazing.
Comeback, that he had to do with. Not necessarily the throw on 4th down in the playoff game, right? But that he had enough, in the regular season to say, okay, like, why wouldn't you want him as your quarterback for the next few years?
But it's not that simple. And this is what, like...
Oh, I agree. That's why I'm saying
no.
I can see them just playing it out.
No,
yeah, I'm laying out the other side and getting a sense that the other side is anticipating extension talk.
Okay, but here's the thing. I know I'm shouting at the messenger here, but it's not about Kirk. It's about math. 0 times in NFL history has a team won a Super Bowl paying one player more than 13.5% of their cap. Well, but the Rams last year were paying Jared Goff Even if you want to split that hair, are you going to base your entire blueprint off the one outlier from last season? A team that went all in, trading all of their first-round picks for 5 years? I mean, you can. I think I would say, Kirk, you are welcome back for 3 more years if you want. We have to pay you less money if you want to win a Super Bowl. It's checkmate. It's like, are the Vikings going to be the first team ever to pay a guy that high a percentage of their cap and win a Super Bowl? Like, look around the NFL, look around the room. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just saying, like, front office, snap out of it and stop paying him that much money, please.
Well, I mean, A, you can yell at me all you want. B, like, Kwesi understands that, right? And we can knock Kwesi for, whether it's the draft class, some of the free agent signings, certainly deserves credit for the Hawkinson trade, right? But, like, Kwesi gets that, right? I feel confident saying that. That's why I'm just saying I wouldn't be shocked if they let this thing play itself out.
Yeah. Okay.
On that, though, Duke, so I think that there's a very good chance that they will extend him by a year again through 24. Because, I mean, I think...
That's what logic says, Judd. I get it. Logic says that is absolutely what is going to take place.
To use Phil's term of checkmate is the Jefferson contract, which is going to kick in 25. So when that kicks in, I don't think that you can afford to have Darisaw at that point in time nearing a very rich extension, Jefferson on a rich extension, which is going to be bank breaking, and Kirk. So I think realistically, they'll probably do another year, eliminate the 2024 void year, have Kirk sign through 24. But then I think the most interesting question is this: are they going to wait until then to address the QB situation? Or
I think 24 draft. Yeah,
to get their butts going right now, though.
Subject to change. I'll be doing my research on the Florida quarterback, some other quarterbacks here as we head into, Mobile Senior Bowl week, then into the combine. So it's not like it's not on my radar, but I think more so the 24 draft.
Yeah.
Trey Lance.
Would you trade a third rounder for Trey Lance?
I would. Yes. Would the Niners do that?
Well, Michael Silver is saying, based on conversations he's having.
Okay, and he knows John Lynch. Okay, so that's fine. But I just wonder, in the end, does John Lynch make that move?
Yeah, might kick in a little more.
I'd kick in more. I definitely.
The Vikings don't have a whole lot more to kick in. They only have future draft picks, but
24.
I think it's an intriguing possibility. Phil, I'll bring up what I brought up with Judd on Tuesday. So I was catching up with salary cap expert Joel Corey, former NFL agent, represented John Randall, Ed McDaniel, Chris Claiborne. So he's done a bunch of Vikings deals going way back, does solid work for CBS Sports. So I'm catching up with him the other day. He brought up the idea that the Vikings, it would behoove them to do the Jefferson extension sooner rather than later. Like, we know the Jefferson extension is coming, but don't wait. Be proactive. Yeah. Beat the Niners to signing Nick Bosa to his extension, because the idea is, Jefferson not only wants to be the highest paid wide receiver, but he wants to be the highest paid non-quarterback. Yeah. Well, Nick Bosa is also going to be in that boat, highest paid non-quarterback. So beat the Niners to signing Bosa, because once Bosa signs on the dotted line, the price for Jefferson presumably will go up.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Any other final scoops in your scoop bag here, or final takes from you, dudes?
Sure. Yeah. I was just texting with somebody who is close to Dawson Garcia. The bone bruise didn't play last night. Heck, the Gophers played pretty well last night against Indiana. Day-to-day. So he's going to try to do some stuff maybe tomorrow, heading into their game this weekend at Northwestern. So he's still a question mark, but not any sort of long-term injury with the bone bruise. But can't say right this second that, like, he's in or he's out on Saturday in Evanston. Back to the Vikings. Dan Chisna signed a futures contract this week with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Vikings also made a comparable offer, but with his Penn State ties, maybe just a better overall opportunity, he chose the Steelers futures contract over the Vikings futures contract. And Jalen Suggs back in town next week with the Orlando Magic. He will have his jersey retired at Minnehaha Academy the night before. So I believe Orlando is here a week from tomorrow, the Friday night. So that ceremony at Minnehaha Academy will be on Thursday night. So 1 week from today. You look at the Wolves, back to the Wolves. Last night started that game in New Orleans, a stretch where 10 of the next 11 games, so now 9 of the next 10, are against teams they're jockeying with in the Western Conference. Orlando is the one outlier. Otherwise, Memphis is here tomorrow. Sacramento is here, Saturday? And Monday, they have a game against the Warriors coming up. I don't have the full schedule in front of me, but point is, they have a bunch of these Western Conference games the next couple weeks. So, like, over the next 11 games, now 10 games, we'll know a ton more about where the Wolves will be able to position themselves.
Yep. Great stuff. Great stuff. Doogie.
And on the Twins, they would welcome Gurriel, my understanding, on a minor league deal. I don't know if he's open to a minor league deal. Not sure I see them signing him to a major league deal. And, you know, like, all these relievers are still out there. And Falvey went on the record with me on December 20th, the Joey Gallo introductory press gathering. And I asked Derek, and I said, hey, you know, interest in retaining Fulmer? He's like, yeah, like, his face lit up, like, trying to read some body language and all that. Like, I came away thinking, yeah, like, there's legit interest in re-signing Michael Fulmer. Well, now a month later, like, there hasn't actually been dialogue. Now, he's still out there, so all it takes is one phone call. But, like, to me, if you have, like, legit interest in retaining the player, wouldn't there actually be dialogue on that front? And there really hasn't been to date. So, you know, I'll keep an eye on it. But to me, as long as he's out there, the possibility exists that they will re-sign him.
Yeah. There he is, Darren Doogie Wolfson, inside information about Minnesota sports teams. Thank you, sir.
Okay, boys, take it easy. Have a great weekend.
All right.
See ya.
All right, and that's a wrap on our Mackie and Judd here, Reckless Speculation Thursday. Any just quick thoughts from you, Judd? That was a meaty scoop session there, a little 30-minute session there.
Gurriel does nothing for me. That's my
38 now.
immediate thought. Yeah, he does nothing for me.
The Cousins thing, it's like, dude, how many times do you need to run the same contract back and then wonder why you can't fill out the rest of your roster and they get smoked in the first round of the playoffs or not until either Cousins or the team finally says, enough.
Yeah.
Enough.
I think it's one more 1-year extension.
If you're him, wouldn't you just, like, play on way less money? If you care about winning a Super Bowl, wouldn't you say, what do I, like, within reason, guys, I'm not going to play for $1 million, but, like, I don't need 35 anymore at this point in my life. How about 18 or 20?
If I cared about that, I would have in 2018, in March of that year, I would have signed a 6-year contract that they could move the cap around. Like, his first contract made one statement, and I don't even blame him, but it was, I want my money, and I want a short-term contract so it becomes the first fully guaranteed contract in the history of the league.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I think the ship has sailed on, hey, Kirk, play for less. Until every team says, we ain't paying you.
Yeah. Interesting to see what happens here in the coming weeks. All right,
Later.
we got to go. That's Mackie and Judd. We'll see you for Feedback Friday tomorrow.